Like, because you have a lot of things that you're on your mind, and then you don't have a large audience like coming in yet. So I figured record it, and then you can use it later.
Yeah, I'm trying to record it, but it doesn't seem to want to record. I'm pressing
It's
the
recording now. As soon as you're done recording, it'll send you an MP3 and an MP4, or you can just upload it to YouTube.
Oh, okay. But if
Yeah,
it's recording, I should see a little red dot in the corner there, though, right?
I see it in my side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then it's recording. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally, man.
I was yeah, I don't know how much earlier you joined me talking about whether or not the paranormal meets the criteria given out by science, and in considering what is considered proof and what's not considered proof, and the basic scientific method that leads to that. And
I'm not on that level you met. I'm not on. Yeah, I can't use words. I'm not on that level. No.
no, well, is you still have an opinion though?
Yeah. As far as ghosts, man, that's hard. I don't know, man, because there's so many other opinions about ghosts. Because that's like that's a religious conversation. That's a whole thing.
Sure, it could be part of a religious conversation. I mean, I can see where it's definitely applicable to a religious view.
Hmm.
But I still feel that it's outside of religion. I mean, some religions would exclude that phenomenon,
No.
But I mean, like for you personally, like, what would you consider proof of a ghost if you weren't there to witness it yourself?
Oh, me, if I have proof of a ghost, if I saw stuff like floating around, that's the thing. Like, I've never had those experiences in my life where things are floating around. So, or, the couch starts moving, like the poltergeist exorcist thing. That's never happened to me. So it's hard for me to believe that since it's such more of a reach. It's out of my realm of reality.
Right. So I mean, if you did experience something of that magnitude, would you?
Yeah, that would probably make someone a believer. They definitely start looking at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, if you yourself experience something like that, would you be more prone to believing it, or more?
Yeah, totally. If something of that magnitude had happened to me, then I would start exploring more. But nothing like that has happened to me that I know of. Then it's harder for me to want to explore that area of the world, or that area of knowledge.
Or would there be a part of you that would be constantly seeking a so-called rational reason for it, some already known natural mechanism behind what you experienced?
Don't know, man. That's a deep question. Don't know, man. You're on some next level thing. All I wanted to do is tell you, since you're giving out a lot of content, it's always better to record it and then go back to it. But yeah, you're on some next level, man. I'm gonna let Anthony roll with it. And
hey, what's up? I feel out of place here because I'm with two Canadians and I'm an American. So yeah, James is half Canadian because he's got dual citizenship. So
okay.
Yeah. James, come back. No, I saw the title and I heard the last part of what you was talking about before James decided to boot himself. And I was wondering what you kind of talking about in relation to paranormal activity and science and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, Darryl, I saw you on the Joe show the other night about gun laws. Yeah. So.
Oh, about the school shootings. Yeah.
Yeah. So. That's the
Yeah,
reason I'm following him.
yeah, we had to agree to disagree on that one,
Yeah,
but that's all right.
Joe's an interesting guy. I try to get on his show, talk to him about some web series and stuff. But anyway, I wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about the paranormal, but Joe hopped off. So Joe, come back. James, come back, please. Come back, James. I'm sure he will eventually. So what were you talking about as far as
Um,
the paranormal?
I was basically talking about, by what method, do can we use and say that this particular item is proof of the paranormal? What do we consider proofs? And what scientific method is required to effectively record the paranormal, to to lay it out and say, this is a real phenomenon, this is something that's actually occurring, and what is flawed in that process.
Okay. Okay. Well, my point of view comes from this. Um, I have caught some VBPs before, both in my room and at my family's business. The EVPs that I've caught in my room were about my dog that passed away 7 years ago. Matter of fact, I even heard my dog growling, just doing the special growls he does. He used to do. So I have caught EVPs in my room and both at my family's business. My family's business, I caught EVPs about just normal everyday conversation. Just where's Gilbert? Go to go to this person, whatever. My viewpoint on it is science may not be able to answer the question because it's more of a religious, spiritual issue. And religion, especially Christianity, does bring up the topic of the paranormal quite a bit. And yes, I do. I believe in ghosts and demons and angels and aliens and that sort of thing. Viewpoint on aliens is a little different, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about
That's my friend who has experienced weird things in his house. Finds a bunch of ghosts and stuff.
Throughout the Bible, it talks about spirits, both good and bad. It talks about testing every spirit. I'm sure it talks about that in the Quran too, and other books, about that kind of thing. If you look about it in a religious point of view, then yes, it can back up the paranormal.
Okay, so I see what you're saying.
It's everywhere.
But I think science can still effectively document paranormal, because the paranormal does have a real effect on our world, right?
Yeah, it does, and science has done a lot to help form paranormal, back up the paranormal a lot. But as far as saying to explain it, no, it's more of a spiritual issue than a scientific issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, science is kind of approach system, right, to find the underlying explanation to how things happen, right? And so science may not be able to explain paranormal, but science is more than sufficient enough to effectively document the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you're saying from a religious paradigm, that's a lot of argument for the paranormal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, and just enough like EVPs. That's enough to document the paranormal. Weird things like UFOs interfering with radio signals. That's enough to, that's a scientific point of view.
Such a Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, well, the Bermuda Triangle, that's another scientific point of view. You really can get into some interesting topics about that.
I've heard weird.
What's this?
I've heard weird stories about that.
I would think that part of the goal is to take not just one scientific measure at a time, but try to take simultaneous scientific measures at once. So for example, like recording an EVP, right? I mean, that's just one method, and then all of a sudden you have this voice that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, that's what I used, was a spirit box.
Those work too.
When I got mine.
Yeah, those work.
Right. And
they do work a lot.
Now what about what about like the problem with EVPs from a skepticism point of view is that I've heard this idea thrown out that the recorder acts as a transmitter and picks up voices that are already carried through the airwaves from random stations. And
well, essentially that's what a spirit box does. It picks up the AM and FM band, or you can even set it for police band or CB band or whatever. It picks up whatever range it is, and it picks up white noise too. It picks up the little spurts between the broadcast radio signal. And but essentially that's what it does. But in theory, what a spirit box does is that every word that is picked up by the spirit box, a spirit is using that word to communicate with.
Oh, okay. So they're through a spirit box. The spirit is basically tuning into all these frequencies, collecting all these words sort of form a sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. A spirit box works so quickly that you can set it up for milliseconds or nano or however fast you want. And essentially what you get is something that sounds something like this. You hear that? Because it is scanning through the AM and FM dial just at a rapid pace. And so it picks up little snippets, like little microseconds of a radio transmission. And so essentially what the theory behind a spirit box is a spirit is using the particular word that it picks up at the time to use the word that it's wanting to use.
Okay, so I'm just like what kind of messages have you received through a spirit box?
Well, like for me, and my brother's kind of against it. I'll have to tell you that my brother's he took the same stance of you. It was the same thing. He heard what I heard, and he said, "Oh, well, that's such and such," because he knew he works at one of the radio stations here in town. So it picked up a lot of the voices that he knew, and I knew well too. And he's like, "Okay, well, that's such and such voice, and that's such and such voice. He just happens to be saying the word that at the time that it was picked up. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. But what I was picking up was, well, like here in my room, I was trying to verify that I was actually hearing my deceased dog, Antonio, that passed away a few years ago. And, I was asking it questions like, is my dog still here? Antonio, are you here? Please make a noise. That kind of thing. And
okay,
I would getting answers back saying, Antonio, are you still here? Yes. Would you make a noise? That kind of noises that I knew. Oh God, that's got to be him. Asking stuff. Well, if you're here, what color are you? Blue, white. That because he was a Italian Greyhound. Matter of fact, you see the picture of him right there. Essentially, that gray is called Blue, and I was like, okay, that's that's his description. That's definitely his description. So that's what I was picking up in my room. Now, at my family's business, I was, I didn't even stay with the box. I kind of just left it alone and put a camera up there and just left it alone. And after about 2.5 hours of recording the thing, I came back and I got about 3 minutes of audio. And it was stuff like, where is Gilbert? That was one of the things that was said. Go to Michael was another verse, a thing I heard. A thing that kind of backed up what my old, what the building used to be back in the 60s. It used to be a department store. And so you'd get conversations going from like a lady, move the lamps over there. Or no, that sale isn't going on, or something like that. And but we're really confirming. I had to ask people, hey, was there a Gilbert that used to work here in the 60s? Because we live in a small town, everybody knew everybody else. So was there a Gilbert who lived here? Or was there a Michael that worked in this department store? And it was verified. Yeah, there used to be a Gilbert that worked in the same building that my business currently is in. There was a Michael that worked in the building. And so, it kind of verified it to me anyway.
Yeah. I'm just like for the like I'm not opposed to the idea. I definitely there's something going on. I'm just thinking about what other scientists would say and how they would scrutinize these proofs that you've acquired, and if paranormal research requires to go under heavier scrutiny to be more accepted among the scientific community.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to deal with. I mean, I've heard like stories on ghost hunters on Sci-Fi Channel, and they talk about the equipment they use, and then people would say, no, you're just happening to pick up, you're picking up anything from excess radio waves going on, bad faulty wiring. That's another one you pick up a lot. Another one is it's psycho-induced, meaning you hear what you want to hear, or psycho-induced by a misfiring of the brain. Craziness, literally craziness. That's another one that you get a lot.
Well, yeah, they've done tests. I know they've done tests where they've played certain sounds or certain sound bites, and they realized that when you suggest a word to somebody, they'll hear that word in that inaudible sound. But I would think the way to eliminate doubt from that would be to like take an EVP that you've recorded, for example, and have a bunch of different people, comment on what they think it sounds like, and if it all matches up, then you can rule out that bias of wishful thinking.
Yeah, that'd be like a blind study kind of thing.
Yeah, like a blind study test. Yeah.
Yeah. But personally, I go back to my viewpoint. It's more of a religion kind of thing, and science can be used to prove religion if they would want it to, but they don't. They just kind of separate the two and just say, nope, they're two different things.
Right. I mean, to like to one extent, like if you look at YouTube, for example, I would say there's like tons of proof of the paranormal. There's tons of videos of ghosts, tons of videos of things being moved around without being touched. But therein we encounter a problem with people producing fake videos and people using special effects to fake those videos. So already there's a skepticism, almost like an inherent skepticism, for the skeptic, right? If they're watching a video of something that they believe can't happen by itself, and so their first thought is, special effects, or this video was faked, it was rigged, this type of thing, and it just leads us onto all these possible explanations of how it can be faked. I mean, it's
that's one of the many problems with it is people can fake so much stuff these days. Used to be, people would say you can't fake a picture or a picture never lies. Yeah, these days it can.
Yeah, I imagine at one time that probably was a saying, because I mean, aside from what you can do within the developing phase of film, there really wasn't any way you could fake a picture, unless you mechanically faked something and then took a picture of that.
Yeah, or it was a developing mistake, which that can happen too. Overexposure, underexposure, exposure, what they call double exposure, where you're getting part of a picture onto another picture, that kind of thing. That's possible.
Yeah. Do you think part of the problem is that the paranormal is not like trying to understand physical laws that always reveal themselves over and over again, in that they follow a very strict set of rules, like trying to discover a particle, for example, that has to still abide by the laws of physics, right? So you can find a way to observe a particular particle, and then that experiment can be replicated over and over again with different scientists with the same success, because it has the same parameters, right?
Yeah, but I hate to keep harping on it, but I just don't think people see it much as a religious thing. They back it up with religion. It can be backed up with science. So, but that's my point of view, and I hate to keep pushing that point, but that's just the way I see it. I've always seen it that way. And frankly, I think science and religion can go hand in hand, but that's a totally different topic altogether. That, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. Well, I mean, you believe in ghosts, right?
Yeah, I do. I believe in spirits and ghosts, and believe in demons and angels. Believe that spirits can pass as ghosts. I believe in, frankly, I do believe in the Loch Ness monster, but that's more of a different. That's not really paranormal. That's kind of a medical. That's medical, metazoologically thing. But
yeah, and do
you know, but it falls.
Do you believe
in
there. Ghosts? You know, is your belief as strong as your belief right now that like I'm a real person?
Yes. Yeah. But for me, it's all backed up by religion, though, because, you know, I believe in spirits. But I'm a bit more agnostic, so I kind of have to go into the thing of, well, I believe in reincarnation also, and I believe in, spirits. I believe in spirit guides. I believe in, that kind of thing. So,
wow, you have a lot of beliefs.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated. It is Christian based, but it's a little more than Christian based. You get into some you get into some metaphysics metaphysics kind of in there, and some different beliefs that different religions talk about, like Buddhism and agnosticism and all that kind of stuff, and it's really complicated, but it's fascinating if you look at it. But pretty much for me, it's just a way to validate my Christian beliefs.
Oh, okay. So basically, like of all the measurements you've made, like with EVP and the voice box, is that what it's called?
It's called voice box. Some of it's called spirit box. It's also called the Frank's box too, because that guy who made it his name was Frank. Oh, okay. So I don't know what his last name was, but some people call it Frank's box.
So probably like more so from like all these measurements you've made using the spirit box or EVPs. There's like an emergent picture from all your experiences with that probably strengthen your overall belief, right?
For me personally, it did. Now, for somebody who's not religious like me, they're definitely going to say stuff like, "Oh, well, that's what was picked up on the radio at that split second," or "Oh, it's faulty wiring," or "It's all in your head," because it's what you want to believe.
Right. I mean, yeah, I mean, psychological bias is always an issue. Well, I mean, yeah. Just because psychological bias exists doesn't mean that the paranormal is not real. You know, I mean,
and then there are such things as like EMF poisoning, where there is too much electrical field going over the air or over a certain place, and you get near it, and you get stuff like nausea, headaches, indigestion, diarrhea, constipation, crazy things in your head. And if the wiring isn't fixed, then you're constantly going to get that bad electronic field beaming out, and yeah.
So you're saying that's like, that's something that can cause a range of symptoms that aren't necessarily caused by spirits or ghosts.
Yeah, but it could be perceived that way too, because again, in the spirit world, they get the same thing. You know, you can get headaches, you can get nausea, you can get voices in your head. You can. I would rule out bad wiring first thing, and if you find out, yeah, the wiring is properly done and is properly shielded correctly, then we have a spiritual issue that we're dealing with. It's not a naturally man-made kind of thing.
Yeah. So do you think there will ever be a point where the scientific community will basically accept that there is a phenomena occurring, even if it can't explain it? Or do you think there will always be like a debate, those who believe and those who don't believe?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, I think that it will always be that way. That there will never be a way. It will never. The scientific world will never accept things as spiritual issues, and the spiritual issues will never fit into the scientific world. No. I know you're Canadian, but I know here in the States, separation of church and state, that's a big issue, and that's where that falls into play here in America. And I don't know about in Canada, where you are. I don't know how much religion falls in play with the scientific community.
Yeah. I mean, I know there are definitely scientists who are open-minded to the possibility of different paranormal events. I did read about this guy who did this pretty much lifelong investigation into reincarnation. And what he basically did was he compiled all these different stories that were told by all these different children, and tried to look for evidence supporting their stories. So, for example, like a little kid would say, yeah, I remember being a fighter pilot, and then he would probe, okay, well, what was your plane? Like who were you flying for, and what was happening at the time, your name, and then try to, prove that, through historical records and this type.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that story pretty well too, and
yeah, it's fascinating. There's no doubt about it.
So there's Tim. Hey Tim, how are you? He's over on the side. Is he still in here?
It's
No, he's not in here anymore. I don't think. Nope.
Yeah, one person said there's got to be disapprovers in every field. Yeah, I mean, I believe that. I mean, there has to be skeptics, because without skeptics, then people would think that everything that happens is paranormal in some way or another.
Yeah, and that's where it goes back to the thing of verify it before you believe it's a paranormal event. Try to back it up a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm just well, replication is a big issue.
How so? What do you mean replication?
Well,
or you mean to say repetition?
Sure, repetition or replication. I mean, you know,
Oh, okay. I know what you're saying now. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
a big part of proving something in science is being able to observe it time and time again, through with different people, doing.
Sorry, when you said replication, I was thinking genetics. What?
No, I didn't mean that. Like ball lightning, for example, right? Which I think is now accepted by the scientific community, right? But
Yeah, I saw something about that on Nova like few months ago about ball lightning.
yeah. So the first person observed it, and of course, it wasn't taken more seriously until more people observed it. And that's a problem with the paranormal, because someone could go into a haunted house, they could witness a ghost, even record it, and then 10 other teams go in, on 10 different days, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And so it's kind of a brick, that sort of, I almost wonder if spirits or ghosts even have the means to communicate whenever they want to, or if there's certain circumstances in which they're simply not able to communicate even though they intend to.
If you look at it in a spiritual realm, if you look at it in a spiritual way, then I'd have to say no. No and yes. There are some people that believe that a spirit can't communicate because they don't want to, or some people believe that a spirit can communicate because the circumstances are right, meaning that it's an anniversary, or some special events are happening, like a storm and a full moon and a storm and just whatever factors you want to put into it. There are some believers who believe in kind of like there was a technical word for it, but I can't think what's called. Where it's kind of like an event that's being played out by like a record, catching the event over and over and again. I forgot what that's called. Excuse me. But residual haunt. It's called a residual.
Yeah, I've heard of intelligent
thing.
And residual hauntings. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's possible. Yeah, it's scientific data would back up everything that's going on. So, yeah, that's what my viewpoint is on it.
Yeah. It's it's a it's a really hard thing to investigate. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You look all black to me right now. Like your
Okay.
your screen has gone all black. I don't know why.
Am I back again?
No, your screen is still black, but the audio is fine.
Okay. Well, I went to a different tab. That might have something to do with it. I went to a different tab to enter somebody in a instant message somebody gave me. So, I don't know. That might have something to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's the cause of it. You momentarily switch the app and
Yep.
the camera's not activated right now. Have you ever seen a ghost chasm? No, I haven't. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, let me reboot and see if maybe that would fix it. I think I know why it did it. It did it because of the fact that I went to a different window to answer somebody, and I came right back, and it might have gone that way. So.
Yeah, sure. Do what you think you have to do. $12:36. Yeah, anyone that feels free to hop in, just hop on in. You don't have to have all the answers, because I'm pretty sure nobody does. It's theories built on theories built on theories. Oh, here we go.
Okay, you see me now?
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it was. Apparently, I didn't know that Blab doesn't like you to go to other windows.
Yeah, so we can rule that out as paranormal, right?
Yeah. That wasn't a paranormal thing. That was a computer glitch error.
Yes. Yes, fair enough. Have you based on your own personal experiences, have you ever taken a measurement that was just so convincing to you personally it just made the hair on your neck stand up?
Well, I mean, religiously, yeah. And like I said, with the EVP that caught, that was definitely something that raised the hair on my neck. Just suddenly say, okay, yeah, that backs up a lot of things. To ask somebody, was there Gilbert who used to work here a long time ago? Was there Michael who used to work in this building? And people tell me, yeah, we knew who that was, or something like that. To get questions in my room answering, what did my dog used to look like, and is he here? And that kind of raised some questions, some hairs on the back of my head. But some of the stuff you just kind of like, still you got to wonder though. There are some areas that are in my building of my business that I know, yeah, there's faulty wiring here. No, I can rule this area out, but then to go to another area where no, yeah, the wiring's up to code here. That can, and then getting the same effect. And kind of like, okay, is that is that because of faulty wiring, or is that because of a real paranormal issue or real paranormal thing? If that makes any sense at all.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind is we have this universe that we live within, that follows the natural laws, made up of the four fundamental forces, this is gravity and a strong and weak nuclear force and the electromagnetic field, and it's made up of particles, and then we have this paranormal world
that seems to have the ability to interact with this universe that's governed by the physical laws. So that tells me that actually it's quite mystifying to me to tell you honestly, but it tells me that the spiritual world or the paranormal world must be governed by its own laws.
It probably is. I would say so. I would definitely say so. I've heard it said that some people think that the paranormal world, the metaphysical world, is more of another dimension.
Yeah, and yet when these dimensions, collide, for lack of a better word, they can actually interact.
Yeah.
As so I mean, this the interaction would if the interaction, then this paranormal world must be very real.
I would say so, but again, you'd have to back it up with religious points of view, and I don't think it'll ever get proven because religion and science, especially these days, especially since the church and the state got separated. Back in the when did the church and state get separated? Back in the 50s, 60s, something like that. Separation of church and state. But
yeah, it's these topics always result in just absolute mind-boggling thoughts. There's always big unanswered questions. Whenever you have like a topic, I find. I mean, it's like one of those things where you investigate it and you end up having more questions than answers.
Yeah, you do, and especially more so if you're looking at more of a scientific way than a religious way. If you're looking at a religious way instead of a scientific way, or whatever, or you just kind of question more than.
Yeah, well, the looking towards the religious as an explanation, wouldn't the religious speak to more as why these things happen, but not how they happen?
Yeah, it would answer the question why more than how or whatever. If you really want to go into deep science of it, you could do some deep science, and you could really, do some, like for me, I'm a Christian, and I believe in the event that Jesus turned water into wine.
Mm-hmm.
That was a paranormal thing. Yeah, if you really could have then taken the water and taken the metaphoric issue of how the wine was turned in, or how the water was turned into wine, sure, I guess it could have been done. You could have scientifically looked at how the molecules changed and the atoms changed and that kind of thing, and temperature factors and that kind of issues. I mean, you could have, but and you can do that with everything. I mean, you can do that with paranormal issues. Kind of explain. You can put a little bit of science to it, but it never really will answer the question.
Yeah. I mean, some phenomena just has its own inherent problem. Earlier, I was talking about near-death experience. The inherent problem with, for example, is that it is near death. You know, it's not death experience. So when you have near death experiences, for example, there's always you can always argue, for example, that the brain was completely dead and the brain was responsible for the experience that the person had, because it's you don't have cases where people have been completely dead and rotting for 3 days, they came back to life, and you ask them, what did you experience? What was, so I mean that's that's the problem of like the near death experience. But I mean it does produce some proofs within itself, within some stories, people talking about objects and certain things that are that have taken place that the person couldn't have possibly or consciously or think would have had to eyes, which would give a lot more credit. But what do you think about the anecdotal evidence? Do you think the overwhelming anecdotal evidence lends itself to being a type of proof?
Wait a minute, anecdote meaning?
Like meaning like people telling stories of what they witnessed, what happened to them,
Not really. And the reason I say that is because eventually you get to the point where that becomes folklore. What is being said was folklore, and it's a story passed down from generation to generation, or persons passed down from person to person, and it kind of becomes like a game of telephone tag, and people put their own spin on it, their own interpretation on it, and eventually it just gets all muddled because of it being passed down so many different ways, and eventually it gets more confused than anything else. It's more of a one-on-one kind of thing, an actual story having to back up another actual story. Not a thing of where a story is told so much to the point that, yeah, it's possible, but it's more of a folklore kind of issue.
Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, you have like millions of eyewitness accounts of ghosts, for example, told by first person.
Yeah.
Telephone.
And that's, that gives it validity. It really does. But then you got the other side of the story where you get so many different accounts, and you get so many different points of views, and eventually it's going to become like it's just going to become like a folklore story, and you really like what's that? How much truth does this actually give, or is this just a good story given?
Right. Right. Especially because they're all going to slightly differ from each other too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. For the most part, they will.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it seems that for the most part, paranormal research is being investigated through different paradigms. You know, there's investigators that bring psychics with them and bring historians with them to validate what they find out, and they bring cameras with them and their other instruments, you know. So you've got all these different telescopes, sort of speaking, that are observing the same phenomena at the same time. I don't know where I was going with that thought.
Well, I think what you're trying to say is, yeah, it does give it some validity, but then there's a point where you just kind of like have to wonder how much truth is in that, because of the fact that it's kind of like a game of telephone tag. It's being told so many times that it's like, is that actually what was said? Is that done? That goes into the ancient astronauts' point of view of stuff. If you watch the ancient astronauts' points of view, where they talk about ancient cultures and the beliefs in Zeus and Hercules and all, you know, Greek has the same thing, and so does the Romans, and except different names, different stories. And personally, I do believe those were real events, but they were misunderstood by a mindset that didn't understand what was going on. And so it became a thing of folklore instead of an actual telling of an actual event, because it becomes a point of a misunderstanding.
Yeah, that's and one really great example of that is there's two populations of people. There's the Native Americans and there's the Aboriginals of Australia, and by DNA, scientists know that they basically spread from one spot on Earth and migrated, you know, through different passages to get to their final destinations, you know, by following their haplogroups, you know, as traced by mutations, you know, within the sex chromosomes. And yet the Native Americans and the Aboriginals of Australia both believed by their stories that they were the first people, that they originated on that landmass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, but we know that's not true by the science of it. So that's an example of how this whole telephone tag, you know, got misinterpreted, you know, into a false truth, you know, because, you know, we know the Aboriginal people of Australia didn't magically appear in Australia by themselves, you know, but their folklore says they do, and the Native Americans have the same story, you know, about their origins.
So, hey Mark, what's going on? Hey Mark, you want to hop into this? Is he still in here? Hopefully he is. Mark, hop in. I want to have your opinion, please. He's a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
Mark, can you hop in? I want you to hop in, because we've had some interesting discussions about this kind of stuff, about the paranormal and everything we're talking about. There he comes. Hey Mark, what's going on?
Hey guys, coming to you from live from hotel room here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh yeah, nice.
For a conference here. Just came back from an incredible evening out on the town.
Yeah, I enjoyed your Blab day. I got to hop in real quick and ask my question about.
Great questions there. We appreciated you being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted you to hop in, Bart, because I know you and I have had some interesting discussions about paranormal issues, religious issues, that kind of thing.
Sure. What's up? I just came in, so I don't know where the discussion is at.
Oh, well, we were talking about the anecdotal evidence that supports the paranormal. So, for example, you've got millions of eyewitnesses that all testify to the paranormal experience that they've had, and by the sheer number of them, you have to assume that some phenomena is occurring because so many people have experienced this phenomena, but it's still anecdotal evidence.
Right.
And we were talking about how telephone tag, if you ever played telephone tag, the message changes from person to person to person, how that can really distort the original experience and leave less evidence to supporting it.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the thing that I bring to this always is, first of all, a general agnosticism, which means that, I try to come from a position these days of being open to anything. Being open to anything doesn't mean all things are equal and all things are equally valid. It means being willing to ask questions about anything. And the thing that when we talk about so-called paranormal, the reason I approach it from somewhat of an arm's length and somewhat of a what I hope is a healthy skepticism is that my studies of neuroscience and our minds have evolved from a purely layman standpoint, very admittedly, I'm somewhat aware of how incredibly able our minds are at creating realities that are very real to us in our perception. That we see things. For example, it's very curious. If you take something like this is an example, like UFO phenomena. Thousands or even millions of people see the things, but the type of UFOs they see, or the type of exposure, the type of alien encounters tends to change rather radically over generations. And it matches the perceptions that those generations have been conditioned to believe or think, that an alien craft would look like, or an alien would look like. So that makes me, that doesn't make me automatically discount that there's something there, but it makes me aware and available to the idea that this could just as easily be something that that our minds are creating, and that seems very real to us. In the same way that a dream, we've all experienced.
That's especially based on cultural influence, right? Because if the type of and experiences change with time, there's an implication that there could be cultural influences at work.
That's exactly.
Well, not only culture, but spiritual issues, spiritual upbringing, religious upbringing, that kind of thing has to go and play. Like with me, being a spiritual person that I am, that falls into play a lot with what I'm talking about.
Exactly what you're saying, Tony. Another thing is after-death experiences that people claim to have. It's very interesting that people tend to see in that experience something that aligns very much with their religious upbringing.
Right.
And, I don't think that's by coincidence. Now, I'm very fascinated recently by some research that I've been doing, some reading I've been doing, and talking with a few physicists, actually, who are talking about how beneath, we have this Newtonian level that we live at. Newtonian meaning that we see, cause and effect, the general, we think of, most of us think of in everyday life as the physical laws of the universe. And now, more recently in the last 50, 60 years, we've learned about the quantum level, where things are very strange and random and inexplicable and very non-Newtonian. And then below that, though, there's a level at which you're seeing a level at which there is incredibly organized information underlying that chaos. And when you see all that, like I say all that to say, like I'm more open these days to the idea that people who have, whether it's after-death experiences or other kinds of paranormal experiences, might actually be coming into touch with something that's a larger reality, even though maybe their interpretation of it, based on their conditioning, is not exactly what it is. But that doesn't mean that they're not necessarily touching something or coming into contact with something that's very real. I'm just open to that possibility.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Darryl, where are you? This is the first time meeting you. Nice to meet you. Where are you coming from on all this? What is your interest in it?
Oh, well, there's I've been very much interested in near-death experiences, especially as motivated by my spiritual side. But I investigate it with my skeptical science side. But I'm always seeking the answers to the big questions that always remain subjective depending on who you ask, and the questions that lead to more questions sometimes. But I definitely think it's worthy of discussion. It's worthy of investigation, and I believe it's a real phenomenon that's occurring. But I just wonder if it's a real phenomenon that's occurring, then there has to be a way to make that bridge so the scientific community would eventually consent that, yes, there's a phenomena occurring, even if it can't explain how it occurs.
Well, the problem, I think, for the scientific community is that, if you want to call it a problem, is that they're radically committed to the idea that they can only speak to that which they can verify, they can test, and they can falsify. And a lot of the claims being made for the paranormal are not testable. So science can't speak to them. And I think a lot of honest scientists would say, like, yes, we would say, like, that doesn't mean there's not something there. It's just not something that science can speak to. We can't analyze it in a laboratory. We can't.
Well, Mark, before you come in, we were talking a little bit about that. We was talking about EVPs, and because I picked up several of them in my life, in my room, and in my family's business, I picked up several of them.
Picked up several of what? I'm sorry.
EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. I picked up several of them in my life. Other stuff like one that we didn't really talk about, but it probably did need to be addressed, was the phone call after death phenomenon. That's where you get a message or an email or a phone call or something from a loved one saying, yes, I'm all right, or I love you, or tell Bobby he forgot to do this, or whatever the message happens to say, or just something special happens, like a special special song comes to the radio that reminds you of somebody or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's two different things. And I just want to stop you there for a moment, because the one thing that would be very specific, like if you actually got a voicemail message from someone who was dead.
Well, literally, that's a real thing, and that does.
Okay, but it's anecdotal. And what I'm saying, when I bring in the science side of it, it's not, understand, Tony, that I'm not saying that that's been disproven. I'm saying that has not been verified in a manner that's true science. Like there's no controlled experiment that says that happens. It's all based on anecdotes, one-off stories. Then you kind of stray into another thing, which is, we say, like, you hear a song that reminds you of, that gets into an area of biases that we don't understand, that most people don't understand, that that coincidences, people immediately assume when a coincidence happens that it's something supernatural or strange. But the fact of the matter is that coincidences do happen in the large number of events that happen in the life, and they are truly coincidences. The other thing is that we tend to grasp, it's called confirmation bias. We tend to grasp onto things that naturally, we grasp on things that seem to confirm something, like, oh my God, that was Aunt Josie's favorite song. And the day after she died, there's that song on the radio, not understanding or not realizing that, there's an entirely, that within the realm of chance, the chance that song played while is low is not improbable.
Yeah,
and
I'm just saying it does.
Yeah.
That fits into the definition of message from beyond. Definition of what it is. So,
but again, because you choose to see the person and understand it. Like I'm not being antagonistic here. I'm saying it's understandable that a person in a highly emotional state where they are hypersensitive, they're going through a huge emotional crisis, they've lost someone that they love, that anything that happens within the environment that seems to be coincidental or correlative with that person's life is going to be seized upon by our minds as, oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's, that was her favorite song.
Striving for a connection.
Right. And that's a very human thing to do. It's a very natural thing to do. I just approach that with what I hope is a healthy skepticism, not to say that it's impossible, that it's something real from beyond, but to, I think we would take a step back from it. We have to realize that there are perfectly acceptable naturalistic explanations for most of those events.
And that's where we was getting into some of the, you have to really verify some of the natural causes. Like for EVPs, you really have to. So, is there a natural event? Is there miswiring here? Is the wiring not shielded properly? Are you getting radiation poisoning? Are you really getting electronic radiation poisoning? To the fact that it can make things like headaches, diarrhea, constipation, stomach problems, dizziness, everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I was previously, I was talking about, one of the fundamental problems in trying to, scientifically prove the paranormal is replication. Replicating the same experience again and again to observers, and unfortunately the paranormal doesn't seem to follow that.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most famous example of that is the famous Randi Prize. James Randi has had for years, the $1 million prize that they have at the Amazing Meeting every year. When they invite anybody that has paranormal claims to come in and say, will you submit yourself to to a scientifically valid evaluation where there's a controlled experiment where we eliminate the possibilities that there's other things coming into play here, and say, can you reproduce what you claim to reproduce? And in all these years, nobody's been able to claim that $1 million.
Yeah. So the reproducibility is an occurring issue, and I don't think that necessarily means that the paranormal doesn't exist, but it just seems to be the nature of it doesn't make it so easily reproducible. Like a team can go into a haunted house and have a huge experience, get it on videotape, and then 10 other teams could go in on 10 different days and get nothing at all.
Right.
And that's part of the inherent problem. I mean, and of course scrutiny, right? It's anything that enters the scientific community has to go under scrutiny, before it's generally accepted. And
people think there's, one of the problems here is that people think, some people in the world that is enamored with the paranormal or the supernatural, whatever you want to call it, think that there is this inherent bias in the science community against those things, and that they poo-poo it out of hand. But the scientists that I know, my wife is one of them. That's not the way they operate. I mean, if anything that's presented that can be reproduced and that is open to falsification, which is the basic term of science, that falsification means that you're open to other people attempting to demonstrate that there are situations under which whatever you say you've demonstrated does not occur, reproducing the same circumstances. That's falsification. That's a basic tenet of science. That anything that when you think about I talked when I first came in about the quantum world. I mean, the quantum world is so bizarre. It is so weird that it looks like what we would call supernatural. It doesn't behave like anything that we previous that defined as normal. But science totally accepts that now, because it's been verified thousands of times over by attempts to falsify it, and the models that it predicts work. That when you can make a model become scientifically valid, when you can make predictions based on it that work. When you say, like, if this model is true, then X, Y, Z ought to happen, and X, Y, and Z does happen again and again and again, then you have a high degree of probability that the model is right. So I don't think science has necessarily an automatic bias against the paranormal or supernatural. It's just that nobody in that world has been able to produce anything that is testable by science, that is falsifiable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark, we was kind of talking about the separation of church and state, and Darryl's a Canadian, so I don't know how it works in Canada as far as separation of church and state, meaning the religion part of the state versus the religious part of the thing. But personally, in my point of view, I think that science can back up religion and religion can back up science. That's just my point of view. And that's a very general statement. Can I finish?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just my thought real quick. The whole mindset of people today compared to 20 years ago or 40 years ago or even 100 years ago or 1,500 years ago, or however far back you want to, is much different than it was back then. People had a more religious point of view, had more religious values, more religious beliefs, and could really say the point, like I'm saying, religion can back up science and science can back up religion. I do see a big separation of the two. It not just here in America, but in all over the world. And it's what I was pretty much saying is that if religion got more involved in the paranormal, it would back up religion and science both.
Not sure I understand that statement.
That's pretty much it. If people were more religiously mindset, it could back up belief both scientifically and religiously.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my mind around that.
Yeah, because I think that seems to fly in the face of everything that we've been discussing for the last 10 minutes.
No,
there
are
many
really.
things. There are many things. Okay, go ahead.
No, not really. What I'm just saying is that people have lost so much religious mindset these days that it doesn't fall into play anymore. And personally, in my belief, that I think that if a person would really look at this in a religious standpoint, it would back up the scientific claims, and vice versa.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things where it doesn't. I mean, that's demonstrably where it doesn't. I mean, obviously, science is at odds with a tremendous amount of things that religions have claimed. Religions over the years, just even by what you kind of your own narrative, have over time retreated. There's the so-called God of the gaps, where it means like God is restricted to things like at one time everybody thought like we can't lightning occurs in the sky and it's very mysterious. We don't know where that comes from. It must be God throwing it down. Now we understand atmospheric conditions that produce lightning. You can go on and on and on. And so the area where we need a God or something supernatural to explain what happens in the world gets smaller and smaller. Now it hasn't been reduced to zero, but it's interesting that it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so there's huge areas now that used to depend on religion to explain, where we no longer need a religion to explain what goes on.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah.
So, my approach is, again, that doesn't, I'm not coming from a position of being anti-religion, but to say that, I think that's just kind of a cast-off statement to say that religion verifies science and science verifies religion. Well, in tremendous areas, that's simply not true.
Well, to me, because the paranormal issues kind of does get back up my religious faith a lot, and if that makes any sense, it does give it some validity.
From a standpoint of I guess from a faith standpoint, but a person like me doesn't come from the standpoint that faith has any value, because faith is just believing something because you choose to believe it. I'd rather, as you know my story, Tony, you've heard it in numerous blabs, that I was a very intense, very devoted religious believer for 30 plus years of my adult life. And I decided at some point, and it was a hard, long process, but about 6-7 years ago, I decided I no longer want to have a fear of something, saying that there's certain things I just can't question because I take those by faith. But no, I said, step back and say, like, everything is open to question. Everything is open to investigation. And, if there's some kind of God there, then I'm very open to that God demonstrating itself to me in some way that verifies to me that it's something that I should be concerned about in my life. But right now, I don't see that. I step back and say, like, I'd rather live my life based on what I can verify. And when I say verify, never with 100% certainty, because I don't believe anybody has 100% certainty. They claim to, but they don't. We all operate on the level of probabilities. And it's whatever you think is most probable to be true. And I'm trying to base those probabilities on things that I can investigate and verify and that are testable. And then build from there. And I'm willing to build up to wherever that takes me. Not ruling out anything. But it's kind of like I needed to wipe the table clean and say, like, because faith gets in the way of that. Faith says, like, okay, there's certain things that I just believe because I believe them, or because my religion teaches me, or my parents taught me that, or my culture teaches me that. And I decided for me, that's not an authentic way to live. I need to be authentic. I need to step back and say, there can be no sacred. There can be nothing that isn't open to being questioned and investigated.
Yeah, God very well may be hiding behind the Big Bang.
Sure.
Or even behind the mystery of consciousness. Consciousness is to the neurologist what the Big Bang is to cosmologist.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In the comments, Traviata is saying, like, he goes along through, he says, the belief system in which science, much of science is based on beliefs too. Well, I would say, Traviata, that that's not real science then. I think you're confusing that. Are there scientists that have beliefs that they haven't verified, that aren't scientific, they haven't tested? Absolutely. They're human beings. Scientists are human beings. But that's not the same thing as science. Science is a pure discipline, says we approach everything from the standpoint of it must be falsifiable, it must be testable, it must be reproducible. And science does not claim to be able to access all of reality, all of knowledge. Science acknowledges that there may be things that are beyond that.
There's limitations as marked by the physical laws. So in that saying that, for example, because of the speed of light, we can't observe the boundaries of the universe. because light simply hasn't traveled that far yet. You know, there's limitations because of the laws of the universe that limit us to our observation. And then when you get down to the quantum level, it becomes a matter of how it's observed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because the quantum level shapes up everything, because the quantum level brought extreme humility to science, because we realized like the act of observing something changes the thing that you are measuring. Or the act of measuring something actually changes what's being measured. Right. Right. And so that brings in a fundamental humility, and scientists who understand that really, this is the fallacy that many people think, scientists are arrogant, that they have some kind of religious or pre-commitment. Actually, the real scientists that I know are the most humble people in the world. They're far more humble than most people who are people of religion and faith, because they have come face to face with the knowledge that at the most fundamental level, reality is extremely weird and extremely unknowable. And that doesn't mean that therefore God. That's the thing. It doesn't mean like, okay, it's weird and it's beyond our ability to measure and test, therefore God. It just means like, therefore we don't fucking know.
Yeah. That's why I kind of take a little step at, even though you've got some scientific record to show, yes, something scientifically is happening. To me, it's more proof that, God is God and God is at work, or a metaphysical, or a
well, you say proof, Tony. How is that proof?
But then again, that's getting back to the thing of it's more of a belief. But it's proof to me.
Right. Yeah. So don't say proof. Yeah. Just like I'm not. Understand that I'm not belittling your beliefs.
Yeah, I know you're not. I'm just saying that even though there is some scientific record that is unexplainable to me, that kind of gives more validity to my faith.
I think too that's one of the limitations of the paranormal being accepted by the scientific community, is that it ultimately results in the unknown. So if a phenomena occurs and the cause of that phenomena is unknown, the scientific community would just merely accept it as an unknown, where a person who believes in the paranormal will automatically reduce it to an effect of the paranormal.
Right. And to me, that's why a true scientist, not the kind of scientist that, I don't know what Traviata is talking about over there, about people believing in real, the mainstream, who based on old dogmas. As soon as you mention the word dogma, if anybody's believing in a dogma, that's not a real scientist, Traviata. I'm sorry, it's not a real scientist. A pure scientist simply says, out of humility, that which we have not been able to test and verify is simply the unknown. And we know from the history of science that much of the unknown has been pushed back. It's now largely known. Never with certainty. No scientist says anything with 100% certainty. Science works in the realm of probabilities. But we know a lot of things with a high degree of probability that we did not know 100, 200, 300 years ago. So we've pushed back those boundaries. But that doesn't mean we know everything. Doesn't mean we can ever know everything. And that's okay. Because what I love about science, pure science again, pure science, not individual scientists who may be swayed by dogmas and beliefs and religions and things like that, but pure science is humble, because it has that humble agnosticism. It says that which we cannot verify, we simply say we don't know yet. And to me, that's much more exciting and valuable than saying the religious position of saying like that which we don't know, oh, God explains that, or my religion explains that, because then you stop. At that point, you've stopped inquiry. You've stopped the quest for knowledge. And to me, that's a stunting and sad thing.
Well, there's like one problem I have, one issue, is there are scientists, who will say, there is no God, with an absolution as if it were absolute fact. Right. And the ones who I find are the most honest are the agnostics, who simply say I don't know.
And by the way, most people call themselves atheists, Darryl. Most people do not say that either. This is a huge misunderstanding that atheists are people who say that they know that there is no God. I know of almost no atheists, and I know a lot. I'm very, very much active in the atheist community. I know a lot of extremely educated, very intelligent atheists, and they do not say that. You say, well, aren't they just agnostics then? No. What atheism means, to be an atheist, simply means that we find it highly improbable that the gods that have been proposed, the thousands of gods that have been proposed by all the religions that have ever existed, highly unlikely that those things are the gods, if there are any gods, because it is much more Occam's razor. It is much more likely that those are the creation of human imagination. Not certain, but likely. Again, remember we were saying, talking in the terms of probabilities. So when
right. I mean, if there is God, I mean, it could be a God that does not represent any of the gods that were proposed in religion.
Right. So I am an atheist. Like I guarantee you, Tony, who's a believer here, okay, is an atheist because he's an atheist. No, you are an atheist. No, Tony, listen. No, excuse me. Let me finish, Tony.
Yeah.
You're an atheist towards Thor, towards Zeus, towards Buddha, towards Vishnu, towards I could go on and on for the next 7 hours. An atheist because you don't believe in those gods. You believe in the particular Judeo-Christian God. So you're an atheist toward all the other gods that ever have been proposed.
Okay, that's what you're saying now. Yeah,
right.
But as far as those goes, yes, I do believe those, but that's more of a deeper issue of yes, I do believe that was an actual event that was seen but misunderstood by a generation, and therefore it become folklore because it eventually become a big thing of telephone tag, and what was seen was misunderstood. And
but you realize that there are millions upon millions of people who believe in those other religions that would say this exact same thing about your religion, your perception.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you probably mostly have because you were born in the United States of America. You were born into a Christian culture. What if you were born in India? What if you were born in Tibet? You probably would not have the beliefs that you have, and I think that should make you stop and take a moment of question and reflection of why you believe what you believe, and why you would assert that well, my God is the right one, but all the others they were stories and they were myths and they were imaginations that people tried to make up. That's what gave me pause. That's what made me 7 years ago take a step back from my religious commitments and say, like, it's very arrogant of me, and I'm not imposing arrogance on you. I'm talking about me. It's very arrogant of me to assert that the God that I have because of the accident of where I was born and the family I was born into and the culture I grew up in, happens to be the right one. I got the right answer on the quiz, and everybody else in history got it wrong.
Yeah, I deal with that issue too. I have a question now, about which God is actually the real God, or what God are you talking about, or whatever. And I kind of have.
But most people never stop to reflect upon that.
Yeah.
They never take that one step and say, like, okay, what does that mean that, I have this incredibly intense commitment to this particular God, but how much of that is the accident of where I was born and the time and the place and the history of where I was born? And if it is highly influenced by that, what does that mean? I think that's a very deep question to ask yourself, and it led me to a lot of other questions that don't make me antagonistic toward religion, but make me want to be in a place where we only have this one life, and I don't want to waste it. I want to be a seeker after truth. I want to be, and I think to be that is what I finally decided is, like, I can't afford to be afraid by what somebody tells me in church, that if I ask questions or I have doubts or I investigate other things, that I'm going to be punished forever or whatever, struck down with this. Like I refuse to be afraid of that anymore. I am going to ask the questions. I am going to try to get to a place where I can investigate this as objectively as I can, understanding always that that's hard to do.
Yeah, and can't be thrown back into the dark ages where religion ruled everything, and you need to be stupid, and we're going to control everything, and
I'm totally not trying to insinuate anyway that that's what you are or anything like that. I very much empathize and understand where you're at. Those impulses, the things that we've been taught, what we grew up in, what we've been conditioned to, are very, very strong, and they're very much there, and they're very important in a lot of their lives. And by the way, I'm not one of those who wants to like crush that in people, because where it's good, I'm cool with that. Like ultimately, if this belief in your life produces things that are good, it produces love and tolerance and constructive things into the world, then hey, knock yourself out. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody, what I want to talk to you is like, if you're somebody who says like, I want to take a step beyond that. I really want to be authentic in my life, and I want to live a true life, and I want to try to pursue those things which I can truly know. Then I think that's the person I can talk to and say, okay, then let's begin to ask the questions, and let's step beyond the realm of fear and not fear anymore. And be able to love life enough to ask questions of anything.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Darryl? You're looking very thoughtful.
Well, I kind of want to address something what Triviata was saying in there about what science is being led towards the mainstream media, what the mainstream media is telling them. Yeah, in a way, I kind of agree with that also. Yeah, it is very biased as far as what is being said and what's not being said, and and again, here's my big conspiracy mouth opening up where it really shouldn't, but it is going to anyway. That there are some people who literally say this is what you need to believe and why you need to believe it, and or we're going to keep this truth hidden from everything else, or what else. That's
but see, go back to what I was saying a moment ago, because this is where Traviata's now dropped out because he said he had to go do something else. But this is what I was saying is like, dude, don't scientists are human beings. Don't confront me with you. You can find a hypocrite. You can find people that are consistent. You could find places if you talked with me for several hours, you'd find all kinds of places where I'm inconsistent, where I'm hypocritical, because I'm a human being. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about pure science. And on the whole, science isn't dependent on individual scientists. You can find scientists that believe all kinds of things. But the wonder about science is that it is the best. It's as flawed as it is the best mechanism humans have ever come up with to try to arrive at something approximating the truth. And it's a self-correcting mechanism, because you can always have scientists. I mean, look at the creation. There are creation scientists. There are scientists who have degrees from universities who will say the world is 6,000 years old. Complete and utter nonsense. Okay? Doesn't matter, because the whole of science corrects that, because other scientists will come in and falsify that and bring the evidence, the overwhelming evidence that says like that's just not true. Say that. So to pick out individual scientists and say like, well, I know scientists who insist on this, or say there is no God, or there is this, or that is true, is irrelevant, because that's not science with a capital S.
And there's people like me to say, what's a year to God and what's God to a year? 1,000 years could be a day to God. So, sure, it could be 6,000 years, but it was really a day to God, because a day could equal 1,000 years.
All right. Well, science can't address that, because science doesn't address a God. So science can't verify a God and what a God thinks. But
that's the neat part about science, is that even if you look at like well-founded theories of evolution, for example, there's still scientists who still argue against it. So that's one of the mechanisms of science that I appreciate, is that whatever the science currently believes at any given time, there's scientists who are willing to debate it and argue against it, and the continuous scrutiny of whether it's truth or not. You know, just like Einstein's theory of special relativity wasn't easily accepted by scientists, especially in the face of classical Newtonian.
Sure.
It was tested as recently as the 1990s, when they flew 2 airplanes with atomic clocks on board, you know, to in an attempt to either prove it or disprove it. You know, I was gonna say, like, going to the God thing, you know, probably in my mind, you know, of course I can't prove or disprove God, but for me the biggest proof would be that, you know, we all of a sudden had this universe that seemed to come from nothing, you know, the Big Bang, and out of that came energy, and then we had matter, and then from that matter came life, and from that life came intelligence, and then came consciousness, and then came philosophy and morality, and it just seems to me to be strange that the universe itself would have a mechanism to come from nothing, and to be able to reflect upon itself and have its own consciousness, you know.
Well, here's my challenge to that, Darryl, and that, you know, that
Well,
I understand
this is my biggest proof of God. So I mean, I can't really gather a bigger proof than that. So I mean, go.
I mean, that's you know, I don't at all discount that, because it's certainly, all of that gives one pause, and I think it should. But the bigger understanding is that there are theoretical possibilities, not proven, nothing's proven, but you know, the God is a theory, okay? Fundamentally, God is a theory, and any theory is something that makes predictions. What I mean by predictions are things that says, like, if this is true, if, you know, if X is true, then we should expect that Y, Z, whatever, you know, will result from that. And the God hypothesis certainly accounts for a lot of things. It's a good hypothesis because it's, you know, you can account for a lot of things that then occurred afterward out of that. But it's not the only hypothesis, and it's not the only hypothesis, or only theory, excuse me, that that is accountable. And there's some very interesting and good ones, you know, coming forth. You know, I appreciate to Leonard Krauss for the University of Arizona, you know, very respected physicist, who look up on YouTube his video Universe Out of Nothing, and he's got a whole book coming out of that, and talks about, you know, quantum fluctuation, how things like, because actually we see particles coming into being, hopping in and out of existence all the time, right? So what all I'm saying, I don't want to get down in the details of that. All I'm saying is that there are alternative theories. Now, the theories don't explain everything, just as the God theory doesn't explain everything, because, you know, with the God theory, you still have the problem of, like, well, where did God come from? But it's not true to say, because this universe is amazing and because we're here and all that we have, therefore God. That's not the only alternative. It is a viable alternative, but it's not the only alternative. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, my basic stance on it is that essentially God must have left fingerprints. I can't conclusively prove that he has fingerprints. I mean, I'm aware of various Big Bang theories. You know, the Big Bang could have been the result of quantum fluctuations, particles popping in and out of existence, and or it could have been the result of parallel universe. You know,
Right.
multi.
That universes happen all the time, and that there may
Yeah,
be a different number of universes.
Stephen Hawking, you know, proposed that gravity was always there and was somehow a trigger for the you know the Big Bang, and this idea that there is no asking what happened before the Big Bang because there was no before the Big Bang. So the question in and of itself is illogical. So I'm aware of those, you know, and I mean, you know, I struggle a little bit with, you know, the God gaps, you know, because they become smaller and smaller, and in my mind, it's been reduced now to consciousness and hiding behind the Big Bang, you know.
And Darryl, just hop in real quick. That's one of the big reasons I've become an agnostic in my thinking, instead of becoming a fundamentalistic Christian or an atheist. I've chosen to become agnostic instead of one extreme or the other. So.
Right. I mean, you know, I don't think necessarily that even if there is a mechanism to be found that can explain the Big Bang, say there was always a certain condition that would exist in nothingness, that's just inherent to existing in nothingness that somehow gave rise to the Big Bang. I don't necessarily think that would necessarily dismiss the possibility of a God.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. And no, that's the thing. That's why I think the honest position is to say, like, we just don't know. What you just said is saying in just one short sentence. What I took 10 minutes to say is that, you know, that God is one hypothesis, one theory among many, and it's a good theory because it predicts a lot of things. But just because a theory predicts things doesn't mean ultimately that it is the alternate, especially if there are other theories that also can predict the things that we see in reality, which is what we're finding to be the case. So there are other alternatives. And because of that, you know, that's why I'm an agnostic toward that position, not because I think that we've eliminated the possibility of God, but that there's nothing so far that we have that proves that there has to be a God. And when people say, like, you know, well, look at that, look at your philosophy and our incredible minds and our ability to think and the trees and the sunsets and all that, like, that's all, you know, that's all wonderful. But there are viable theories that are naturalistic that could potentially account for all that. Not meaning they prove, not meaning they explain everything, but saying they're enough to say, like, okay, we don't know, but there are multiple possibilities for this. And when there are multiple possibilities, you can't then land and say, like, well, it has to be a God because I don't understand any other way. And as soon as you say that, you're saying, like, okay, well, now you're basing it on your limited finite human understanding. And that's not a very good basis to try to perceive the universe on.
Yeah.
So,
and my point of view is when it comes to God or a supreme creator or whatever, that is a fundamentalistic belief where you just have to accept the fact that yes, that is the only acceptable answer, and no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what it is. But you can question why God, why did you do this? Why, you know, does that make sense what I'm just saying?
Yeah, I just, you know, my position is I just eventually took one step further back than that and said, like, I'm open to questioning, you know, does there have to be a God? And what do we even mean by God? Like, I'm open to the possibility that
one of the problems is defining what God is, because if we try to search for something but it's undefined, then how do we effectively search for it? And for me personally, you know, like, I do believe there's a God, the only thing I can say about it though is the only way I can connect with God is through my heart, which is sadly completely unscientific.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to be the only truth I've realized thus far.
Yeah, you know, and I've recently become more open to that. Like I went through a pendulum swing, kind of, you know, it was like, I used to be as I told you, very devout believer. And then I came to a place where I decided I need to question everything. And in order to do that, I think this is a necessary stage of my evolution, whatever you want to call it, that I kind of went, you know, to the extreme. In order to question everything, I need to start from the position of blank. I need to start from tabula rasa, blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, accept nothing as being given. Now I'm still kind of, that's still very influential to me, but I'm more of the school that there's something beyond what we can perceive or understand behind this universe, behind this existence. But going that far doesn't mean that that's something that necessarily I can talk to, that I need to pray to, that I need to worship, that I need to do rituals in performance of. You know, that's a step that I can't go back to right now because it doesn't follow to me necessarily. So to me, it's more of an interesting thing. It's an academic interest. It's something I love to ponder about, but it doesn't affect my daily life. I live my daily life in terms of what I can verify, what I know, what I see, which is real people, the real world, the interactions that happen, the things that create a better existence for me and for those that I love and those that I'm around, those that I can influence and touch.
Yeah, I mean, we all, for you know, for anyone who has a belief in God, I mean, we have inherent assumptions about what is God. You know, we believe that God is benevolent. You know, that He cares. We tend to we have a strong, powerful tendency to personify God as if He were a cosmic person, you know. And I mean, you know, if God exists, He may not have such a psychology, you know, not one that's comparable to how people think, anyways. I mean, so I mean, we do have those. I don't know if they're psychological biases, you know. I know part of it is imprinted on my DNA. You know, there's something in my DNA that says there's something to this God thing. You know, there is something to this paranormal thing. You know, it's so weird because I'm right on the cusp of it, right? You know, I've got this like spiritual side, but then I've got this very scientific, skeptical side at the same time, and they constantly fight with each other. You know, I think I got one side from my father and one side from my mother, and
yeah, well, I'm the same way too, and that's part of the reason I question a lot of the same things.
Yeah, I mean,
but
this is an excellent discussion, and I'm surprised there's only like 4 people in here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if anyone else wants to come in, please come in. I don't know. We've been kind of rude and kind of hogging the.
And I do need to drop. I have to get up early in the morning, so it's 1 o'clock. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning where I am today.
Yeah,
and, I've got a full day tomorrow, so
it's getting late for me too. So I should close this down. It's 1:48 a.m. for me.
Oh man, yeah.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
We're going to be starting.
Well, for me, it's 10 till 4, and it should be 10 till 4. 4 for you, too, Mark. But
I just came back. I just came back from an evening event, you know, and kind of like wasn't ready quite to go to bed yet. So of course I'm going to check Blab and see what's on here. And the topic was interesting, and I saw Tony here, who I know, so popped in. But
well, I wanted you to hop in because you have had some of the most interesting discussions with me about religion, politics, paranormal. Scientific community, how things all kind of go hand in hand, and I'm like, I do. I find you one of the most fascinating people that I've ever talked to in my life.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that.
And so I thought,
I'm humbled by that.
I'm like, oh yeah, he needs to come in and kind of jump in and say some things about.
Well, I love Blab because it's opportunity to, chat, meet new people, and talk about these things. And I think we come to deeper understandings through this. And it's one of the wonders of this platform that I really embrace and love. So it's why I don't come on here like some people do because, it's midnight and I'm bored, so I'm going to do. I come on here because not all the time, but so much of the time, I end up finding some interesting conversation that I'm going to grow through, and people are going to, challenge my mind and make me think more deeply. And certainly found that with you guys tonight, so I really appreciate it. I am going to be a good steward here and say good night, and hope to see you around here again.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Likewise, very nice to meet you. Okay, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Tony, good to see you again, man.
Good seeing you.
I know I'll.
And it was a pleasure speaking to you as well, Anthony.
Yeah, please call me Tony. I go by Tony, but
Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated your viewpoints on a lot of things. So that's one thing I look forward to is the exchange of new ideas.
Well, I appreciate it. I didn't mean to be so religiously biased, but that's the way I am. But
no, I don't know if you necessarily call it
but I am a little more agnostic point of view. I am willing to look at different ideas.
Yeah. Sure, it could be a religious bias, but for all we know, it could be the truth too.
Yeah.
So, I certainly don't discredit it.
But I personally still believe science can back up religion and religion can back up science. But that's just my viewpoint. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and that may be true. So I'm gonna say good night.
So, okay. Well, I appreciate you letting me on. I wish that I forgot Toss's first name. Didn't mean to kick him out of the room. I was just picking with him at first. I was like, well, I'm the only American in here.
Yeah, that's kind of odd, but I got a sense he had mentioned it earlier that that this stuff was too deep for him, so maybe that's really why he backed out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He's a nice guy, but I was just picking about the American thing. I was like, yeah. So anyway, Darryl, it was good talking to you, and I appreciate you having on me. I had really good fun time talking about this stuff, and these are the kind of things I live to talk about with anybody, because it's not really talked about, it's not really discussed, and it's kind of frowned upon or misunderstood or not even want to be looked at.
Well, keep investigating the paranormal.
Yeah.
I think that's a worthy pursuit.
Yeah, it is. It is, and for me, it kind of gives it more validity towards my faith. But
yeah, I think the moment that people stop investigating the paranormal, I think that's the time when it becomes a real shame. Because I believe all phenomena should be investigated.
Well, it should be. It really should be.
Yeah. Okay, good night, Tony.
So, yeah, it's good talking to you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon. Maybe I'll see you on the Joe show or something. I don't know. So,
yeah, I just wish I had the opportunity to explain where I was coming from with that. I sort of felt I was cut off there, but
no, not really. I mean, with the Joe show, you got to understand, Joe is on a talk show format, and he wants one guest to come in and say what he has to say, and then the next, or he has one main guest, and then kind of talk about whatever they're talking about that night, but that night just happened to be a open forum kind of thing, and he was kind of trying to get one viewpoint and then go on to the next viewpoint and then go on to the next and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the only thing was once I expressed my viewpoint, I put out my theory, it was just all of a sudden, well, I don't believe that. And then it was like click, and I was like, damn, I wish I could have explained myself, man, like why
I was getting what you said. Yeah, the mindset has a lot to do with mental health. Does have a lot to do with good gun control, and it really needs to be put into factor that too. Yes, it really does. Because personally, I believe some people shouldn't even be allowed to touch a gun because they are mentally unstable.
Yes. I've been watching a lot of documentaries on serial killers, and there's usually a soup of elements that add to their personality, and sometimes it's a mixture of brain damage and mental illness and sexual abuse, and all these things play a factor in what they do. And I was correlating that to bullying in high school, and that
that's true. Everything you do affects somebody some way, and my viewpoint is, I've told many people, my viewpoint on gun control is, here in America, everyone has a right to have a gun. Everyone should have a right to have a gun. But there should be more stricter laws about who can own a gun and who cannot own a gun. Mainly for the factor of mental stability, age, the sense of right or wrong, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just like everybody has the right to defend themselves. Everybody has a right to defend themselves. It doesn't matter if it's through gun control, knowing karate, knowing how to fight, knowing how to use a knife properly, knowing how to use local law enforcement to your advantage. Everybody has a right to defend themselves.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, and everybody should have the right to defend themselves. That's a God-given thing. You should be able to defend yourself. Now, how you should defend yourself should be a little up to you. Are you going to, are you going to be able to mentally deal with your consequences of it? Are you going to be mentally deal with a weapon that can kill somebody?
Yeah, it's a big topic.
But anyway, it was good talking to you, and I know I'll see you again sometime later.
Yeah. Take care.
So I'm gonna let you go. Bye.